Good afternoon and welcome to this Tuesday, February 12th edition of Westman Newsline. I'm Colton Yarch alongside Paul Chuchmich and Dylan Donald. In today's news, we'll tell you about the tragic plane crash that took place in Wascata, as well as bring you more information on WestJet not selecting Brandon for its new routes. And Paul will be in with sports. Paul, I understand the IOC is dropping one of the Olympics' oldest sports.
That's right, Colton. The 2020 Olympics will not see wrestling as an event. I'll have that and more later on in sports.
Thanks, Paul. And Dylan will be in with weather. Dylan, please enlighten me with the updated forecast.
I'd be happy to, Colton. And if you're anything like me and enjoy warmer weather, then you'll be pleased with the temperatures for the next few days. Currently in Brandon, cloudy sky and -8 with the winds from the west at 16 kilometers an hour. I'll be back later on in the show with your full weather details.
Thanks, Dylan. A volunteer firefighter answered a call about a crashed plane in Manitoba on Sunday, only to find his son was one of the passengers on board. Dave Pentecost was among the first on scene and fell to his knees and cried. 9-year-old Dawson Pentecost was on the plane with two friends, Gage and Logan Spence, and his friend's dad, pilot Darren Spence. All four died when the Cessna crashed in a field on the edge of the village of Wascata. WestJet has announced a new air service, but Brandon is not a stop on its routes. However, Brandon's Director of Economic Development, Sandy Trudell, says it's not all bad news. She says it may sound odd, but because WestJet has started its new service in the West, she believes Brandon may be on the route eventually. The new air service, called Encore, will be in Fort St. John, Nanaimo, and Saskatoon and starts at the end of June. A Winnipeg youth faces multiple charges, including break-and-enter and sexual assault with a weapon. The victim was a girl. Police say a 14-year-old boy was arrested Saturday following a break-in in Elmwood. He has also been charged with forcible confinement and uttering threats. The Manitoba government will give school divisions an extra $4 million this coming year to help phase in the province's new class size restrictions in kindergarten through grade 3. Education Minister Nancy Allen said the money will allow school boards to hire an additional 69 teachers this year, including 12 for the Winnipeg School Division. The NDP government wants to cap class sizes in the early years at 20 in all schools by September 2017. The funding is in addition to the $27.2 million in new provincial education funding Allen pronounced last week. More than 50 young people walked about 250 kilometers to the Manitoba legislature to protest changes to federal environmental laws that they say will harm their land. Youth from the Jackhead First Nation spent the last 4 days walking from their home and were joined along the way by young people from the Fisher River and Peguis First Nations. They arrived yesterday afternoon at the legislature. The Jackhead First Nation is on the shore of Lake Winnipeg, which was recently named the world's most threatened lake for 2013 by the Global Nature Fund. Hudson the polar bear will be feeling the love when he makes his public debut Thursday at Assiniboine Park Zoo in Winnipeg. The public will get to see the 15-month-old polar bear who came from the Toronto Zoo 2 weeks ago for the first time on Valentine's Day. Officials say Hudson is adapting well to his new home in the International Polar Bear Conservation Center at the zoo. Hudson is the first polar bear in the zoo's new center. And now, from snowbanks to money banks, let's take a look at where today's money markets are currently sitting.
Westman Newsline. Produced by the IMA Media Production students of Assiniboine Community College. Local news, weather, and sports on Brandon's only TV newscast, Westman Newsline, airing at 1 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on WCG TV.
Turning to international news now, North Korea has conducted its third nuclear bomb test. Ed Payne has the details.
North Korea says it carried out a successful nuclear test today, its third. It says it was more powerful than earlier blasts, but the device was smaller in size and lighter. The U.S. Geological Survey did report a seismic event near the site of North Korea's 2 earlier tests. Today's had a magnitude of 5.1. South Korea estimated the blast was around 6 or 7 kilotons, more powerful than the earlier tests. North Korea recently warned it planned a new nuclear test and more long-range rocket launches. Experts say the timing is not an afterthought. It comes ahead of President Barack Obama's State of the Union address this evening, and just ahead of the birthday of former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. Kim Jong-il died in 2011 and was succeeded by his son, Kim Jong-un. International analyst Jim Walsh says this move was tactical.
The party was dead. It was dormant. No one, cared about it. Now they're trying to pump it up. But this is a military-first society. How do you balance all of that? I think, to me, that's the question going forward.
In a statement, President Obama called the test a highly provocative act that undermines regional stability and warrants swift and credible action by the international community. I'm Ed Payne reporting.
The United Nations Security Council is expected to hold an emergency meeting in North Korea at 9 a.m. this morning. Arizona, Maricopa County Sheriff's Office workers involved in the mishandling of hundreds of sex crime cases will not be disciplined. That's despite a 2011 recommendation to suspend several employees. An internal review says it was not the fault of the detectives, it was the department's fault. And if the system's broken, then the people working in it should not be punished. Adam Slinger has the story.
More than 400 sex crimes dating back to 2005, never fully investigated by the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Some victims were children.
If there were any victims out there, I apologize to those victims, if there were any.
That was Sheriff Joe Arpaio in December of 2011, apologizing for what has become a black eye on his agency.
Hope that this never happens again, but sometimes in a large law enforcement agency, these situations occur.
Before that statement, the sheriff's detectives in the Special Victims Unit were told they could be in big trouble for not getting the job done and possibly ignoring some cases altogether.
We repeatedly asked for resources, such as detectives, and repeatedly told you're not going to get them. Everybody's short.
The ABC 15 investigators talked to a former detective back in May of 2011 who said these sensitive cases were never given enough priority from the top. Other detectives in the unit say they were siphoned off to work on politically motivated investigations like illegal immigration and public corruption.
The detectives are being made as scapegoats on this.
Fast forward nearly 2 years later, the sheriff's office now saying it was not the detectives' fault. The entire SVU department was just understaffed and underfunded.
It may not be the blizzard that battered the Northeast. And the sheriff's office says it has reevaluated every sex crime in question. It's adding detectives and it has computerized the entire system for monitoring a case's progress. They're also now conducting monthly audits of sex crimes to make sure this neglect never happens again. It may not be the blizzard that battered the Northeast, but winter weather has returned to Arizona. And for the most part, residents near Phoenix are enjoying the snow. Crystal Cruz has more.
It's a snow day for students in Payson. Some parents took the day off to play with their children.
I did the same thing with my dad in Ohio, going down the sled and seeing who can go the fastest, and usually you're not sledding if you're not getting hurt.
Up to 12 inches of snow fell overnight. There's just enough snow to build a really, really tall snowman.
I'm 6 flat, so I'd say 7.5.
Big and small snow plows are out working.
Where else can you get all the scenic, all the snow on the trees and just the beauty up here? The fresh air and everything else.
Bring your chains if you're cruising up Highway 87.
I would drive without them if I could.
Road crews are forcing drivers to put on chains. Some locals aren't planning on leaving their homes. Instead, Jackie Smith is enjoying the sights from her porch.
We get snow, but it's not snow like Wisconsin's getting or anybody in the Midwest.
James Eichberger stopped to pick up his mail and check out the snow.
This is about all it does every year. A little bit of snow like this, absolutely wonderful.
That's it for news, but stay tuned. Dylan's up next with Newsline Weather.
Good afternoon with Newsline Weather. I'm Dylan Donald. We had a couple of above average temperatures last week, and I'm happy to say a few more days like that are on their way. So if you've been huddled up inside because you were cold, You'll want to enjoy this week for sure. Currently in Brandon, cloudy sky and -8 with the winds from the west at 16 kilometers an hour. This evening, mix of sun and cloud and high of -2 and the winds from the west at 20 kilometers an hour. Overnight, cloudy and a high of -7 with the winds once again from the west at 20 kilometers an hour. Taking a look at our radar image, not a lot of movement around our province precipitation-wise, which means we will not be seeing snow for the next few days. Moving to our satellite image, just like the radar image, there's no major cloud cover right now over Manitoba, with minor clumps moving over from Alberta. Moving to our 5-day forecast, Wednesday temperatures warmer again, a high of -1, then temperatures, while still on the warm side for this time of year, will be sitting in the minus double digits for the rest of the week. On the weekend, a high of -4 and -6 for Saturday and Sunday respectively, with lows of -19 and -11. Now let's take a look around the region for this hour. Winnipeg -8, Portage-la Prairie -5, Dauphin -4, Neepawa -2, Carberry sitting at -7, Clarny -3, Minnedosa clocking in at -8 this hour, and Verdun rounding us out in at -6 degrees. Seasonal norms for this time of year are a high of -9 and a low of -20. The record high was set back in 1983 when the temperature was +2.2 degrees. The record low was established in 1955, a low of -36.7. Once again in Brandon, it's cloudy and -8 with the winds from the west at 16 kilometers an hour. That's it for weather, but stick around. Paul's up next with Newsline Sports.
Good afternoon. With Newsline Sports, I'm Paul Chujmuch. International Olympic Committee leaders have dropped wrestling for the 2020 Games in a surprise decision to scrap one of the oldest sports on the Olympic program. The IOC Executive Board decided Tuesday to retain the modern pentathlon, the event considered most at risk, and remove wrestling instead from its list of core sports. The decision announced by the IOC was first reported by the Associated Press. The IOC board acted after reviewing the 26 sports on the current Olympic program. Eliminating one sport allowed the IOC to add a new sport to the program later this year. Wrestling, which combines freestyle and Greco-Roman events, goes back to the inaugural Modern Olympics in Athens in 1896. Wrestling featured 344 athletes competing in 11 medal events in freestyle and Greco-Roman at last year's London Olympics. Cole Knorr and Matt Fratton scored 28 seconds apart in the second period, and Ben Scrivens made 32 saves in relief of injured goalie James Reimer in the Toronto Maple Leafs 5-2 win victory over Philadelphia. Reimer was helped off the ice early in the second period with what appeared to be an injury to his left leg. Leafs coach Randy Carlyle says Reimer will be evaluated today, but doesn't expect him to miss much action. Enough with the hype. It's time to see the new Blue Jays in action as pitchers and catchers report to spring training today. Among those looking to get started with the Blue Jays, JP Arencibia, who will be catching newly acquired R.A. Dickey's unpredictable knuckleball. And Arencibia and Dickey both lived in Nashville and worked out together in the offseason. The World Anti-Doping Agency is urging soccer to conduct more blood doping tests to unmask cheating players. WADA Director General David Howman warns that team sports players can go their entire career without being tested. Last week, Spain's anti-doping agency announced it was looking into claims by a former president of a Spanish team that its players use performance-enhancing substances. And Colton, that's it for sports.
Thanks, Paul. And that's all the time we have for you today. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for Brandon's only TV newscast, Westman Newsline.